Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. We're going to get started soon when we're at the top of the hour, for those of you who may have joined early. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Kristen Zecca. I'm a director, lecturer, and executive coach here in executive education at MIT Sloan. In executive education, we work with senior leaders and leaders from across the world to help individuals build capabilities through our open enrollment programs offered in person on campus and offered online in both online live and asynchronous formats. One of the courses that we offer is Transforming Your Leadership Strategy. And that is one of Deborah Ancona's courses, and that we offer both on campus and an online live format. Another course we offer is Leadership in an Exponentially Changing World, and that's one of our asynchronous courses. And we also offer custom programs for organizations where we work with leaders to develop organizational capabilities to help deal for forward business strategies and deal with this ever-changing world that we're in. So today, we are going to talk about how do you elevate your leadership signature and the 4 capabilities framework developed through the research of Deborah Ancona and the team that she works with. So I'm going to let Deborah introduce herself. Deborah is a faculty member at Sloan. She is the founder of the MIT Leadership Center, and she is an author. Deborah, would you like to share more about your background?
Sure. Thanks, Kristen, and welcome, everybody. So my background, I'm a psychologist by training, and I have been studying leadership in a variety of forms throughout my career, and that includes individual leadership, team leadership, and organizational leadership. So the individual is the piece that we'll be talking about today, and there we look at what capabilities are needed for this exponentially changing world. Also, some recent work of mine, which we won't talk about today, but it's very fun, is what I call family ghosts in the executive suite, which looks at how your family background shows up with you as an executive. And there are both good ghosts. Ghosts are attributes or behaviors or thoughts that you bring from your childhood, and not so good ones. So how do you deal with those? At the team level, we have a model of X teams. That's Henrik Bresman and myself. And in fact, just to new book out as of August, the second edition of the X Team book. So X Teams is based on years and years of research looking at how do we create flexible, innovative teams. And then last of all is work on nimble organizations. How do we transition from bureaucracies to more nimble, agile forms? What does that look like on the ground? So that's kind of the work that I've been doing. And I like to go back and forth between theory development and actual practice. So what is fun today is to deal or talk to all of you about not just the theory, but how do we make it work for us?
Thank you, Deborah. So this is an interactive opportunity. If you have questions for Deborah, we're going to be taking questions throughout our talk today. Please enter them into the chat. Deborah, I'd like to know what you're seeing in your work, in your research. What are the biggest challenges you see for leaders in today's world?
Great question. And when I start the class, actually, we look at how the world is changing. And then I ask people, well, what are the biggest threats and opportunities that you are seeing right now? And I think if I were to step back from those responses, the biggest challenge is keeping up. people know that I always say this. We used to talk about a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And now it's VUCA on steroids. And that's because the pace of change, it's not just fast, it's accelerating. We're going faster and faster and faster and faster. And so keeping up with that world is the challenge of our times. And it does sometimes seem overwhelming. If you look at the current statistics, I was just looking it up the other day, global data generated annually is totally on an exponentially changing curve. They're talking about zettabytes. I never heard of a zettabyte before. Maybe it's zettabyte, I don't know, but which is 1 zettabyte or zettabyte is 20 trillion 500-page books. 20 trillion 500-page books. And in 2014, we were at 12.5 zettabytes. And 2024, the estimate is 147. So just think about how much data is being generated in this world. And in terms of AI, Sam Altman just said, we're just at the beginning. We're just at the beginning. Before, it's using algorithms to help us. Now we're going to have AI that mimics the human brain. It's going to be like an assistant to us that knows us and can produce like us. I just took an AI course. MIT is wonderful. They had us all do an AI course, and the programs we're using are outdated by the time the course is finished. That's how quickly things are moving. So add to that, not just AI, but changes in robotics, dealing with climate change, dealing with changing labor force, customer preferences. All these things are happening simultaneously. And so the biggest challenge is, how do I cope? How do I not get overwhelmed by these changes? And how do I help my people not get overwhelmed by these changes?
So given the rapid pace of change, keeping up with technological change, keeping up with AI, keeping up with organizational changing dynamics, how do you see organizations changing and evolving in this world, in this VUCA world that we're living in?
So organizations have been on a trajectory of change actually for quite some time, but as the world is accelerating, so too is that organizational change accelerating. And you see that the movement has been from bureaucracies, from large-scale, hierarchical, siloed, rules-based, top-down leadership, to what we call nimble, but others call agile, networked learning organizations, which are set out to be adaptive. They practice what we term distributed leadership. That is, you cannot have top-down leadership where the senior leadership is figuring everything out. You need leadership at all levels. And so when we're talking about individual leadership development, it's important that it be at all levels of the organization, so that there are people, many people innovating, people keeping track of the customers, people who are working collaboratively, not just within the organization, but also outside of the organization. So organizations are adapting. Well, we can't do everything ourselves and be speedy. And so there's much more ecosystem work being done. That is reaching out to partner with other organizations, to learn from other organizations. And of course, that trend really accelerated during COVID, when you saw all sorts of partnerships. I mean, Novartis and Takeda working together, arch rivals working together, because we needed to come up with medications to help stem the COVID. And those were cross-boundary, cross-organizational kinds of structures with teams of teams working together across boundaries. So organizations are making all of these moves to this more ecosystem, nimble form.
So how does an individual leader succeed? What type of capabilities does an individual leader need in order to be successful in a distributed leadership organizational structure, in an ecosystem?
Yeah. So great question. And I'm going to answer it like in two different parts. So one thing that we stress a lot is that leaders need to know and communicate their, what we call leadership signature, their own unique way of leading. Just like we have a signature on letters, you don't really write that many letters anymore, but when you're signing something, you also have your own unique way of leading, your leadership signature. And the best signatures are those that are based on your values, your strengths, understanding of your weaknesses, your personality. It's your unique way of leading that gets you what you need in the organization. So knowing that and communicating it is extremely important in periods of stress and anxiety and change, because people want to know someone is steering the ship through these troubled waters. They want to know who that person is. And by letting your people know who you are, it makes it easier for them, A, to know that there is leadership helping, and B, to know how to interact with you, because that saves them time and energy. Okay, I know I love to invent. That's my signature. I love to figure out new ways to do this and that and the other. And so I telegraph that. And then people coming to me know that, okay, come to me with new ideas, come to me with new thoughts. And that's what will work the best. So you want to give cues to your people to soothe the anxiety and get them more into innovation mode. But there are also specific capabilities that are particularly helpful at this moment in time. And that's the 4CAPS Plus model that we introduce in the TLS course, as well as the Leading in an Exponentially World course. And those are the four CAPS Plus. The 4CAPS, one is Sensemaking, making sense of the context in which you are operating. And in this case, it's probably one of the most important capabilities. If we go back 10 years, when we surveyed executives and said, what are the top capabilities that leaders need? Sense making didn't have to be the term, which most people don't use, but was not mentioned much at all. 0.4% of the time, like almost not at all. Skip forward now, and almost 30% of people, of executives, cite sense making as key leadership capability for this moment. Why? Because sense making is having your finger on the pulse of what's going on in that exponentially changing world. And so you need to be keeping track of technologies, of trends in labor, of what your customers doing, of what your competitors are doing, of what the political situation is, about what are the dynamics within the company as well as outside. So sense making is absolutely pivotal to this moment in time. And when we teach exec ed, whether it's a custom course or some other course, some of the feedback that we get is that the concept of sense making has been the most valuable skill that they have learned, because it is so absolutely necessary right now. So sense making, making sense of your context, going out there and figuring out what's going on, so that you can vision, where are we going in the future? Well, we have to know the present in order to really say, vision, what's a compelling vision for what the future looks like? Sense making is what is now. Vision is what's happening in the future, what is coming. How do we create and draft a compelling vision of the future? Then you have relating as a core thing, because you cannot vision, you cannot even do sense making. You need it to be a communal effort. Things right now are done much more in pairs, in teams. The new organizations that we're looking at are much more team-based, which requires relating skills. And those relating skills have to do with creating trusting relationships, both inside and outside of the company. So do you have an ability to do perspective taking? Can you put yourself in someone else's shoes? Do you have empathy? Not just empathy that is feeling for the other person, but can you actually see the world from that person's perspective? And can you create, again, those relationships where you're listening and advocating and helping others to make it through these difficult times. So sense making, understanding where we are, visioning, figuring out the future, relating, bringing people on board with you together, and then inventing is creating new structures and processes to move toward the vision. Our old ways of working don't always work anymore. And so inventing new processes, new things for people to do, whether it's bringing in an agile framework or a lean framework or different ways to think about innovation or different technologies, those are all inventing new ways of operating. And then finally, in the middle, the plus of the 4 caps plus is building credibility. Going to be working for you, with you, alongside you as a leader. So you need to show that you have some integrity, that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, that you're not going to lie, you're going to live up to your values, and that you're not only in it for yourself, ego-driven. It's all about me and my career and getting all the credit. It is also about what can we do together in this world.
So how you talked about your leadership signature and making people aware of who you are as a leader. You talked about the 4 capabilities plus model: sense making, visioning, relating, inventing, and then also building credibility, making sure that people around you believe that you're going to work with the team and you're going to do what you say you're going to do. How do leaders develop these capabilities and learn about and learn how to leverage, their strengths in these different areas on a team? That's 2 questions, but first, how do leaders develop these capabilities? And then from the perspective of working, on a team, how do you leverage these different capabilities where people may have strengths in different areas?
Yeah, great questions. So how do you develop? I think that ways to develop them are first to know what they are. So, taking a course, reading an article, understanding, having the frame in your mind is very critical. You really need to know what the model is. Otherwise, you don't know how to assess yourself or whether you're improving or not improving. So having that in front of you is often very helpful. And some of the graduates of some of my classes or interventions, they keep a little copy of the model at the side of their desk to do it, sort of check, have I done my sense making? Have I done my relating? Have I done my whatever? So you want to keep that model present in your mind if you're going to develop those skills. But second of all, I really believe that you can't learn leadership just by reading about it or knowing about it. You have to do it. And so I think the best way to develop leadership capabilities is to do it, to take small steps and say, okay, I want to develop my sense making muscle. Well, what does that look like? Okay, maybe I start by doing 1 interview a week, or getting my team to do 1 interview a week. That's a sense-making interview. Okay, we want to learn, everybody go out and talk to a customer and bring that information back. And then what did we learn and how do we process it? Okay, maybe going to do a trip where you look at what your competitors are doing and go and see what they're doing. So step by step, let's try to do some of these things. So courses, experts, absolutely, but also reaching out. Okay, who knows the most about something I want to learn? I want to go talk to that person or bring them into the team. And then I want to go out and learn. I love Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft. One of the things that he did to introduce more of a sense-making perspective in his first senior leadership meeting, what he did was have all of his direct reports who were at this leadership meeting. The first thing he did was say, see those vans outside? Those are for you. You're going on a customer visit. And so goodbye, you're going to go and you need to what he was saying is you need to be more in touch with your customer, to do sense making, not just reading about it, but talking to them, seeing what they're doing, asking them what they like and don't like about what Microsoft is doing. The second thing he did was invite the CEOs of acquired companies to the meeting. They would normally not have been at that meeting. And he said, these people know something about the market and products that we don't, or we wouldn't have acquired them. So what do they know that we don't know? So that's part of a sense-making process, asking, what do you know that I don't know? What is it that I can learn from you that's going to help me make decisions in my work? So that's an example for sense-making. Not sure you want me to go through all of them, but it's by doing.
We actually have a question from the audience from Carol Ann, and she wants to understand, how do you differentiate sense making from strategic thinking?
Yeah, so sense making is really understanding what is going on, what's going on politically, structurally, politically in the organization, what's going on in your changing environment. It's really looking at that. Now, that sense making may help you to develop your strategic thinking, because if you learn that your competitors are doing something that you're not doing, that raises the question, does your strategy need to change? And so sense making can feed into strategic thinking. We have something called strategic mindset as part of our notion of what visioning is. Visioning is bringing a strategic orientation, and that strategic mindset has to permeate all the things that people are doing in their sense making, in their inventing. You want people to be aligned on the strategy that the company or the subunit has. And sense making helps you to figure out how to invent within that strategic mindset or strategic thinking.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is sense making is the action that can help develop the strategic thinking ability by engaging in all of the activities to have a broader view.
Right. And strategic thinking is also not sense making. You're sense making about everything. Strategic thinking aligns people of where are we going and what is the best way for us to proceed in the environment we're facing.
Thank you. So how can leaders who are using the 4CAP Plus model in their organization, how does this promote an organization of innovation?
Oh, well, think about it. If you've got an organization in which multiple people are sense making, you've got a much better map. By the way, sense making, I should give credit where credit is due. Sense making is a term coined by Carl Weick at the University of Michigan. He's written many, many books on the subject, as have Kathy Sutcliffe and a lot of other people who are doing research in the sense making zone. And the 4CAPS Plus model was co-developed. So it's not just my model. We developed it with Wanda Orlikowski, Tom Malone, and Peter Senge at Sloan, and then later iterations with Henrik Bresman at INSEAD. And also just want to point out that in the course, you are able to take something called X360, which is a 360 survey on the 4CAPS Plus model, which gives you feedback on what it is that that you might be doing. So just background to fill in that all of those things are available to people. But the question is, how does it promote innovation? Well, think about it. You've got multiple people in the organization then mapping the external environment. That means you have a much better understanding of what the environment looks like, and you can take those perspectives and hone them into several different ways of thinking about the environment. You also, if you've got everybody visioning and inventing, that means that you're coming up with multiple solutions to success in this externally changing world. People are inventing new processes, new products, new business models, given some vision of where the company can now go. And you've got people aligned through relating to get there. And you've got this sort of engine of innovation that is working by individuals working and individuals then connecting to each other to form an infrastructure of innovation.
And it's across all levels of the organization.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that notion of distributed leadership is one. In our research on nimble, we found that organizations that were the most nimble had the most distributed leadership. Mm-hmm. That is, it's not that the senior leaders don't play a role. They play a big role. They're architecting the whole system that people are working in. But you need leaders at all levels who are coming up with new ideas, who are figuring out, how do we adapt? How do we change? How do we get the technologies, the new technologies in that we need? How do we bring them into the organization? That whole system is what is enabling innovation to work at all levels.
We have another audience question from Tim. How can professionals adapt and thrive in our rapidly evolving environment that's dominated by advancements in AI? And specifically, what strategies can be adopted to change mindsets and refine leadership styles to effectively incorporate AI-driven changes?
Yeah, well, this is, of course, the big issue of the moment. And so I think a number of things. One is, again, starting with education. MIT, we're a big leader in AI, and we have a lot of different courses, as do many other schools. It's not obviously just MIT that is able to do this. But so first of all, you just have to be introduced to the different ways that AI is evolving, to the different kinds of things. ChatGPT, yes, but there's also Gemini and Stack AI and Scribe and many, many other forms of AI that you can use. So first of all, it's just educating yourself. Second of all, I think that there needs to be a lot of sense making with experts as to what's happening and what's down the road, but also some vicarious learning, that is learning from others about AI and how it's used in your industry and organizations like yours, because there's so many applications. The question really is that the companies need to decide what's going to be most impactful for us. What technologies will answer or solve problems that we have that will take us to another venture. We know, for example, that using certain kinds of AI in sales is very helpful for taking people who are not that good at sales and raising their capability quite significantly. So if you have a big sales organization, you should know that. You should be watching and saying, okay, that's something we can use. Who's used it effectively? What can we learn from them? And then build on that to create your own intervention. I also think letting people see and know what AI is doing so that it takes away some of the mystique. It's scary. Oh, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it can do. So I don't want to touch it. But giving people simple examples. Okay, you're going on a trip. Why don't you try to use this to plan an itinerary and use different prompts? You want to go to museums, you want to go for walks, you want to do whatever, or use that again in a business setting. You are having to write up a job description for a new job that you're posting. Put the title in, put some of the issues in, and have AI write a job description for you. Just get people to start using it on a day-to-day basis so that they can see how helpful it is and not be so afraid of it, while simultaneously warning people there's some data you don't want to put on AI because it could show up somewhere where you don't want it shown up. You have to be careful because AI will sometimes be wrong. So you want to, again, educate people on the pros and the cons and figure out what are the best applications and just get people using it. It's like anything else. When it's foreign and you've never seen it, it's scary. And when you begin to understand it more, then you can then use it. So sense making, relating, getting the connections to AI experts, and then visioning how you can use it and inventing ways to put it in is using the model for AI purposes.
Thank you. We have some more audience questions. So Fabian is asking, if you add exponential data, changes, intense inventing, there's a probability that people will go in very different directions. Can you talk about alignment practices that are both not killing the inventing while still enabling a smart filtering converging process? So I think what
great
is asking,
yeah, great question, and it's one that we tackled in. We wrote a paper that is Kate Isaacs and Elaine Backman and I wrote a paper on nimble leadership that's in Harvard Business Review that you can look at. And then there are several blog posts that follow it. And one of them is all about alignment because that is the quintessential question. How do you have creativity without chaos, right? How do you walk that line between those two? And there are several ways to think about convergence and alignment. One is the one we talked about earlier, that is strategic mindset. In nimble organizations, you can go all the way down the organization and people understand this is our strategy. These are the products we sell. These are the customers we sell to. This is where we are in the innovation curve. This is our business model, so that if you're encouraging people to invent, they're inventing within that strategic mindset. And so that goes a long way in aligning people so that they're not all over the place. They're thinking, given our strategy, how do I invent? Another form of inventing or of aligning is what we call funneling. And this is, you want people coming up with new ideas all the time, but you also need to tell them not every idea is a great one. Some are going to be better than others. And so we want you coming up with these ideas, but then they're funneled so that you don't have 10,000 ideas coming in. You funnel it down to here are the 6, 5, 2 that we're going to move ahead with. And so a funneling system is like a choice process. So Southwest Airlines had a choice process, a choice committee. So people who had new ideas for new business models, new ways of boarding the plane, new ways of ticketing, they proposed that to the choice committee, which is a committee of people from across the organization who would look at all these innovations and say, okay, we think these are the best ones and let's test them and we'll decide which ones go forward. So that takes a lot of ideas and funnels them. Another is Takeda R&D, where the best ideas come into a contest, and it's a contest called the Dragon Contest, and the best ideas go into the Dragon Contest. There are clear criteria, a set of internal and external experts rate the innovations, and there are winners, and the winners are the ones who get to go to the head of R&D and say, okay, this is what I want to do. And so there's much more of a probability of that happening. So part of this alignment is to get people thinking in the same way, aligned on strategic mindset and this funneling process, as well as everybody in the organization taking on the role of quality control. Everybody. So if somebody has an innovative idea and they're going on and on, oh, this is great, you can just do time out. Someone else in the team has responsibility for saying time out. I know that we can sell all of these cheap computers to this part of the world and make a ton of money, but that's not who we are. We're the innovation leaders. We don't sell those cheapo things. We are known for best in class. So don't go in that direction because it's not who we are. And so that that quality control where people keep each other accountable. It's distributed accountability for inventing and moving ahead in a way that is not chaotic.
Thank you. We have another question. This one's from Ronaldo. You noted that Sensemaking has grown from 0.4% to nearly 30% in its importance. Which characteristic do you think will become crucial in the next 10 to 20 years? Some of the capabilities you mentioned more briefly.
Right.
So,
yeah. So now looking at this number, I realize it's not 0.4%, it's 4%. So 0.4% is really, it's about 4%. So whatever it is, it's a very low number, not that important. So yeah, I think Sensemaking is big. I think relating, I mean, a lot of my work and our work, the people I've worked with, X Teams, X360, is about this out before in. I think one of the characteristics is relating, but not just with your team, but outside. Is, do you have extensive networks outside? Are you able to collaborate with people outside? And also, so I think relating and really inventing on the spot. Can you take in something, okay, this is happening, and this is where we need to go. So inventing, of course, we need to stay, we need to be able to execute, and execution has always been important and will continue to be important. But the bigger part of inventing is going to be that innovation part, is that thinking about how do we reconfigure resources in a new way, such that we get people to be learning and implementing and doing the work that has to be done. So I think those are some of the things.
Okay. Deborah, organizations have changed throughout the pandemic, and many organizations have become more virtual, with people working in virtual teams. How do you envision the 4 capabilities leadership framework helping a virtual team?
Well, that's a good question. So I think that what we've learned about virtual teams is that they can do very well virtually, but that sometimes they need to come together. They need to be synchronous, not just asynchronous. They need to be together, not just virtual. If you can do that, obviously, sometimes you can't, and people are all around the world, and you can't afford to bring them together. But what you want to do is keep those people aligned. And so where the 4 capability model can come is say, okay, guys, now we're all going to be engaged in sense making, so that people are on the same page, doing the same thing. They can then go out on their own in their individual places and then come back and bring it all together. So there's a lot of work now on this idea of what we call pulsing, what Anita Woolley at Carnegie Mellon calls burstiness, that particularly with these teams, you want to go out, everybody's going out, but then come together. You have to have that coming together, because otherwise virtual teams risk not having an identity, not having synergy, not having cohesion. And so everybody go out and do their sense making and then come back. Everybody do their relating with whomever and then report in. And when the team is together, you also want to work on, okay, how can we continuously improve? You want to have important work when the team is together, so that there's incentive to be together, that they want to be together. And so doing things that are fun together, but that are also focused on whatever capability is necessary at that moment, helps those virtual teams stay together and coordinate better.
Yeah, I know that's something that people are still working on in our as organizations are evolving, changing, and different teams are in different structures is how to balance the in-person and the virtual time, and engage the team overall, engage new employees in the organization.
I just wanted to say that this is a really big issue. And I think that organizations have gotten incredibly innovative in their ability to structure the time that is together. You want your time together when you are in person for strategic decision making, for team building, for cross-team networking. There's a lot of research that says that people stay home if when they come into work, there's nothing going on. Why should I go in when no one else is here? There's nothing going on. So what you want to do is when people are in is have compelling things for them to do. Some organizations, the Broad, they have a great day. I don't know if it's quarterly or whatever. They bring a speaker in, and then people get together and talk about what the speaker said and how to apply it to themselves. They have meetings within teams. They have lunches where you can meet other teams and find out what they do and how your work might coincide. They have socializing time. They have meals together. They have reports out what's going on in the organization that they need to know about. So you make it a fun, compelling day or set of days when people are together, and then feel, yeah, that was worth it. And now I feel much better able to do my work outside.
Thank you. We have another audience question from Yost. What's your view on being vulnerable as a leader? So how does this fit into the 4CAP model?
Yeah, great question. I think vulnerability actually can show strength. So sense making in some respects is showing a vulnerability, because in order to be good at sense making, you can't say, I know everything. I'm the best person. I'm the smartest person in the room, a la Enron. You have some vulnerability around, I don't know. I need to learn from others. And that's okay. And in fact, some of our greatest leaders show vulnerability. In the class, we show Satya Nadella and Jennifer Hyman, who's the founder and CEO of Rent the Runway. And both of them come out as, well, I don't know the answer to that. I have to get in touch with this person. I don't know how to do that. Oh, you taught me something I don't know. What can I learn from this? So that vulnerability, that putting yourself out there and saying, I don't know everything. I'm not the expert. It is good. I think you can overdo it. There are many examples of leaders overdoing vulnerability, coming out and saying, well, I don't really know what I'm doing here, and I'm really scared, and I'm really nervous. You want to keep your credibility while also being able to be clear that there are things that you don't know and things that you can't do.
Thank you. So we have some upcoming deliveries that you can register for if you're interested in taking Deborah's course and learning more about the model and how to transform your leadership strategy. July 9th and 10th, September 24th and 25th, we have the course coming up, and we have multiple offerings. So for more information on the courses, please go to executive.mit.edu. TLS is the acronym for one of Deborah's courses. Thank you for all of your interesting questions today and dynamic questions. Thank you, Deborah, for taking the time to talk with us today. And we're going to stop there.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kristen, for being a great MC and for monitoring and coming up with questions. And thank you to all of the participants for taking time out of what I'm sure is a busy day to listen and learn.